Ugelow. Linda Ugelow is a speaking confidence coach and author of the book Delight in the Limelight, featuring a groundbreaking approach to overcoming the fear of speaking. Formerly stricken with public speaking fear herself, she now helps business owners, performers, corporate leaders, teams to transform their experience of speaking from dread to delight, whether they speak online or on stage, in the media or in the meeting room. Linda holds a master's degree in expressive therapy and movement studies and has performed internationally for over 3 decades as a singer, bassist, percussionist, and principal dancer with a women's world music group. She hosts the podcast Delight in the Limelight, dedicated to helping you to make speaking one of the best things you get to do. I warmly welcome Linda Ugelow. Welcome to BrandsTalk.
Thank you, Brigitte. I am delighted to be here on camera with you.
It's so wonderful having you. It took us a while to get things together, but finally I have you on my show, and I was really excited because it's a topic that is very, very close to my heart. And I think
Mhm.
also very, very close to other people's hearts.
Yeah.
And the topic we're talking about is how to be comfy on camera. And you're talking from your own experience, Linda. So it's also about your journey of becoming yourself, about your story of eliminating your fear on camera. So let's dive deep into that. Can you tell us how this all came about, that you started your own business with that particular purpose, helping others to become comfy on camera?
I had no idea I would be helping people to get comfy on camera when I started my business. I had went through like a career desert for a long time. I grew up always wanting to do something around dance, probably around dance therapy, using movement for personal growth and development. And I did that for a number of years. And when became clear to me after, I don't know, 15 years or so that I wasn't able to support myself, I put it to the side. And I didn't know what to do. And I just explored various different things and landed in organic farming. And I was growing vegetables for local restaurants, which was really fun and fitted my introverted personality. I got to sit in the field for hours on end, weeding and planting and things like that. And I was listening to at the time to Marie Forleo, who is an online business coach. And it was back in 2015, 13, I think, at the time. And she had a module called Start the Right Business. And she was talking about online entrepreneurship and the impact that you can make with the wisdom or experience that you have. And all of a sudden I felt this shock go through my body that I was in the wrong business. I had this long held dream of making an impact in the world in some way, like probably through my movement work, and I had given it up. And I realized in that moment that I had to pick it up again. I had no idea what it looked like at that time in my life, but that if I didn't explore what it could be, I would get to the end of my life feeling regret. So that's when I decided to become an online entrepreneur. As I said, I had no idea what I was going to do. And what I landed on because of my background in personal development was how to keep your vibration high. My website was called High on Life: Strategies for Everyday Bliss. And that was what I was personally focused on, is how to keep my vibration high from day to day and from challenge to challenge. And I learned once I had my website up that people still don't know about me. I have to get out there. So I started to take video courses. And I think I took a course that had you made up 50 videos, and I did that twice, and they were all like unlisted on YouTube, and maybe 2 or 3 people watched them, including the teacher. And then she said, there's this brand new app out there called Periscope. It's going to change the online world. It's something called live streaming. And the world had never heard of it before. And here I was in my late 50s, and I was thinking, I'm late. I'm a late bloomer. I'm late to the game. I'm always late. I'm gonna jump on this and be an early adopter. And all the marketing gurus said, you got to broadcast daily to build your audience. So I was undeterred. I thought, I'm going to do this. And so I got on and I just felt I totally left my body. It was like I felt like I was hovering up above myself and I was hyperventilating, my heart was racing. I was looking at the camera and screen and I could see people were coming in from all over the world and I was totally flipped out. But I thought, okay, day 2 will be better. Day 2, it was the same feeling, but I was ready for it. Day 3, the same feeling, but I was ready for it. And it turned out that I realized I can manage this. I looked up online how to overcome my fear of speaking. I picked up all kinds of mindsets like, don't think of yourself, think of your audience, which is hard to do when your heart is racing. Fear is excitement without the breath or something, and I'm thinking, "Okay, I'm, like, super excited here." Anyway, I was doing meditation and affirmations and power poses and deep breathing, and I gathered this whole, ritual that I could take, 45 minutes and do before I would get on live stream, and I was getting through it each day. And, of course, I was getting better as a live streamer. I was remembering to say certain things and actually, at the time, I had no idea what a call to action was, so I wasn't doing that, but I was, making bullet points and I was keeping to the script, not the script, but my overall theme. And I was super proud of myself for getting on every day. And so the weeks went on and I got to probably week 10 or 11, somewhere around there, day 75. I remember that day because I was doing it every day, remember? And I was about to press broadcast and I noticed that my heart was still racing. And I just stopped for a moment. I thought, wait a minute, I've been, I'm at day 75. Why is my heart still racing? What's wrong with me? Why isn't the familiarity and the practice and the experience bringing me to a place of calm and ease and confidence? And then I had this thought, okay, I'm showing up every day. I am doing it. Just like everyone says, just do it. But I don't want to have to manage this fear anymore. I just don't want to have it anymore. I'm going to figure out a way to get rid of it. So with my background in expressive arts therapy and all the personal development work I've done, I made a long list of stuff. I looked at all these tools that I had and I said, certainly I'm going to be able to get rid of it with all these things. Something's got to work here. And the first thing I did was I decided, what is this fear anyway? And I closed my eyes to connect with it and to ask, what is this fear trying to say? And what came back to me was, I'm going to be attacked. And I thought, what? Attacked? Is that like cellular memory of being chased on the Serengeti, attacked? Or what's in my background? And immediately I thought of the times when my mom would put me in the center of attention and say to my 2 older sisters, why can't you be more like Linda? Because I was a goody-goody in the family. I had seen my older sisters get punished, and I thought, "I don't wanna get hit. I don't wanna have my mouth washed out with soap. I'm gonna be good." But this is how it backfired on me.
Yeah.
Because as soon as they heard that, understandably, they were jealous, they were pissed, and as soon as mom left the room, they would attack me. They would say, "Shut up, stupid." They'd kick me in the shins, they'd haul me on the ground and torture tickle. I don't know if you've heard of torture tickling. And I began to feel like it wasn't safe for me to be seen. If I started to sing in the house, if I made fun of something, if I just expressed myself, shut up. So all of a sudden, I was like, duh, of course I'm afraid of getting on camera or speaking in front of a crowd because I remembered the times it was dangerous to be put in the center of attention. And not just that it was dangerous, but that I would lose my sister's love. So suddenly, being in the limelight was a dangerous thing. It was not safe for me. Now, that wasn't entirely true because I was a performer with a women's world music group. As you mentioned, I was the principal dancer. As long as I didn't have to talk, I was fine. Introducing the song was too much public speaking for me. Yeah, so once I realized that, I said, "Okay, I've got this stuff from my past. What else is there?" And I started to comb around and what else might be there that may be impacting me? Because suddenly I realized the fear that we have, unless you're not prepared. If you're not prepared, that can cause anxiety. But being prepared is different than the fear of being seen and heard. So I started to cull through my what I call my psychic closet of stuff, my memories, the things that stuck in my mind, comments that people made and experiences that I had. And once I realized I had all these things, I thought, I've got to clear this away now. And I happened to have a bunch of tools. I had things like EFT or emotional freedom technique or tapping. People may know it. I've done a lot of creative visualization. I've done a lot of affirmation audios. In fact, that's what I was doing in my work at the time. I was creating affirmation audios for people, personalized. And forgiveness practices. I was a dance specialist, so I did a lot of dancing for release and visualizing my younger self. I did all these things. And I don't know how many hours I devoted. I don't know, maybe it was 20 hours, but in 5 days, it was gone. No more racing heart, no more worry about what others would think. No, I felt freed up from the inside. And it was wonderful. It was like, wow, what can I do now that that my mental energy isn't bound up with managing this anxiety and nervousness and worry and remorse because you worry about the future, you feel remorse about the past, and you're also dealing with the physical symptoms in the present. It took up a lot of bandwidth. And then things started to open up for me. I didn't think right away, oh, this is how I want to help people with. I just started to mention it to people. People say, oh, do you think it will work for me? And I said, I don't know because it's my story. The techniques I love, I don't know if they'd work, but let's try. And first, it was for people on camera because that's what I was doing. I was on camera. And then someone said, I'm not on camera, but I'm on stages and I'm worried. Can it help me? I said, I don't know. Let's give it a go. And it did. And then I thought, okay, my world is opening up here. Now it's not just on camera, but it's also people on stage. Maybe I need to learn more about speaking on the stage. So I began to take speaking courses and do public speaking myself. So I would know what are people dealing with and also to test out what is my experience so I can deconstruct it for others.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful story, Linda. I want to dig deeper into it. It's just beautiful to listen to you and to your beautiful voice. I have mentioned
Well,
before
thank you.
to you. And you just posted on LinkedIn just before we went live. You said, you won't hear from me today. Just do it. Just be yourself. And the magic is outside your comfort zone. We know it is, but we need to get there first. And you also say, pushing through the fear can prolong the time it takes to get confident on camera. Does that mean we first have to figure out what is the root cause of that fear and then reverse engineer and then figure out, how to heal that first in order to get out there?
Yes, and that is part of my inner freedom framework that I talk about in my book, Delight in the Limelight, and on the season 1 of my podcast, and that I help people with, either privately or in groups. So we want it's hard to be in the present if you are being pulled into the past, if you're being triggered.
Mhm.
So that's why we wanna clear it away. So it's not like the only thing, but it's the first thing because while that's there, it will be difficult for you to just feel here and now. So we want to find out, maybe it wasn't your sisters that were jealous of you, but were you ever bullied in school? Did you have a mean teacher who didn't get you? Did your parents require you to never speak back unless spoken to? What messages did you hear? But sometimes it's not even these quote unquote negative experiences. Sometimes it can be expectations to be perfect and never make a mistake. If you did really well in school and you think about the premise of how school is based, you get the highest grades for never making a mistake.
Yeah.
And
Then Mhm.
And that so there's no leeway for you to express yourself, which is a process of experimentation and exploration.
Having the freedom of doing so because we are not allowed
Yes,
ourselves because we are afraid to fail.
that's right, we won't make the grade. And so we've lost our ability to have a mindset of exploration, of experimentation, of just testing things out and having it, like, not work out, and that being totally okay. And then say, "Okay, let's try something different." And this is part of my process that I teach people in my Comfy on Camera class of how to get comfortable on camera, that you explore different things and you just see how it goes. And it's through that process of exploring and experimentation that you begin to have a relationship with the lens and with being on camera and what it means to be yourself. But you can't do it. This is where I don't think that the magic is outside the comfort zone, it's inside the comfort zone. It's where you are in a safe place where you're getting positive reflections on what works, what people are responding to, what they enjoy, what strikes them as important. And when you start hearing the things that are good that you are already doing, you know what to build upon. But when you're always working from the grade, the red mark on the page, what's wrong, what's weak, you leave out all the areas that you're already good and you don't know to highlight them, to bring them out more, to lean into them. And I feel it's where we feel most comfortable, where we have the least fear of being triggered, that which is our comfort zone, that we can in fact stretch the comfort zone because that's from that place is where we feel we have the permission from inside and outside to explore and experiment.
I think it also has something to do with abundance and scarcity. The scarcity is more the fear of not living up to others' expectations and being out of the comfort zone, and living the abundance, our strengths, leveraging our strengths into to actually really show our best version to the world in that.
Yes, and you get like it everyone's in a different place. A fairly solid sense of being good enough, then you can move from that place. You can take quote unquote more risks because you have that sense of safety with you. But if you've been diminished, ridiculed, ignored, then you have this inner sense of not feeling good enough. And that's why it's important to go back to those original experiences, heal them, resolve them, and so that you can get to the next phase in the inner freedom framework is to restore a sense of safety. And you do that by changing the way you speak to yourself, because I don't believe that we are born with an inner critic. I believe that it's partially in response to the negative impact that we have from other people, the input that we have from them. And also, I think it's modeled. We as we grow up, I remember specifically learning how to the shape of my legs when I joined a group of girls saying, "Oh, my legs are so fat. Look, I don't have any space in between my thighs when I hold my feet together." And all of a sudden, it was like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, I'm going to join in." And suddenly I became obsessed with the shape of my legs. It's just I feel like a lot of things are modeled to us as well. S So that the restoring safety inside our own heads, we've got to change the way we speak to ourselves so that we are being the most encouraging, uplifting presence for ourselves. We are our own inner guide, our own inner ally, and that's what we and that the way that we self-criticize actually, I think, is that part of ourselves that knows how to evaluate. We just need to mature that voice so we evaluate with kindness and with understanding of how it will actually help, just the way we wanna be for others as coaches. And then we also need to find a way of feeling safe in our environment, and that's why I like having I encourage people to join some kind of a group, whether one of mine, like Comfy on Camera or Toastmasters, which is not they don't deal with the fear, but they are usually very supportive. Everyone is there to get better, so you have a commonality there. I've worked with a lot of people who are both in Toastmasters and who felt afraid there, but, so they needed to still get into the past in order to clear that away, and then the Toastmasters worked out brilliantly for them as a place to practice that was supportive and encouraging. And then the third way is to repattern our habits, which is a fancy way of practicing new things. So practicing, if you wanna get comfy on camera, you practice getting comfy on camera, and that has elements to it.
Wow, there is one thing I would like to even dig deeper than we just talked about. It's about restoring the safety within us. So for us to be confident enough to get out there, because very often we care too much about what other people say about us.
Right.
How can we disconnect, or maybe there's another word, live with it, whatever others talk about us when we are not in the room or when we are in the room, no matter. But how can we still feel like safe within us, safe with what we are doing to get out there?
Yeah. I think, one thing that I do agree with a lot of, let's say, psychologists and also people in this entrepreneurial space is that we can't control what any other person thinks.
No.
And I think that we grow up, at least I did, I'll speak for myself, somehow believing that I was worthy if everybody liked me. I remember my mom saying, "Be nice to everybody. It's good for everyone to like you," or something like that is so misconstrued. It's not realistic, and I think it really messes with our mind because we can't have everyone like us, and why should we anyway? We can't work with everybody. And do you like everybody? Not to the same degree where there are people that we feel really connected with. There are people that we enjoy, but we just don't maybe connect that much with, and it's fine. And then there's some people that we may be turned off from, and that's fine too. And if we want to feel the freedom to have that degree of connection with different people, we have to allow others to feel the same way about us without feeling that we need to have that in order to be worthy, I'm sorry. So that's like a background, just intellectual level. On an emotional level, I feel that it's a process of playing with that idea. So, like, I have one prompt in my Comfy on Camera class where we say, it's like I started to use this as a way to play with our voice. I call it the I don't care game. I talk about it in my book as well, where I used to be an improv performer and I took a three-word phrase on each performance, I don't care. And I'd say it in a zillion different ways. I don't care. 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 All these different ways. So I just go on and play around with it. But then I realized for the purposes of being on camera, we want to say, I don't care what anybody thinks. So everyone makes a video that's a couple of minutes long where they just say that in lots of different ways and they just play with it. And they find it so empowering because it's like every time you say it in a different way, it creates a new neural pathway in our brain. And we get to experience what the words feel like and what it actually means. Because we do care about people. We care deeply about people, but we just don't want to be worried about what they think of us.
Yeah.
And I think the more that I'm still in process of thinking about this, so bear with me. So we've got the intellectual of the unrealisticness of everybody liking us. Number 2 of playing around with this perception. And number 3, I really believe that most of us have school trauma from the way we are graded. We've spoke about this a little bit earlier. Because when we are graded and evaluated, it triggers the amygdala. It triggers the defense and the fear like, "Ugh, am I good enough?" There was a great article in Harvard Business Review called The Feedback Fallacy that also spoke about this, that people actually do learn really well when they hear the things that they are already good at, when they are given feedback of, "I really liked how you did this. It shows how trustworthy you are. You really plan, or you're so organized, or I love the sound of your voice," or all these things that when you start to hear from externally these comments and reflections that make you feel like you are surrounded by love and nothing but love, then you begin to internalize that for yourself. Not only that, but you feel like you have, since you have a place where you experience that, you can then bring that bubble into other places that may not have that same value system or encouragement. But sometimes they do. So, for instance, like I have a client whose team is so supportive. Actually, this is with many of my clients who work in companies. They they know that everyone's there to support them. They may not have a toxic boss or a coworker or whatever. Everyone, they know everyone's there, but still they feel anxious. But by clearing away the past, by restoring their own mental perspective, and by being in a group where they are held with this loving, reflective support, they find suddenly they're able to generalize or transfer, bring that experience to these other places in their lives. I had one client just yesterday in the Comfy on Camera saying, I actually thought I was pretty comfortable on camera, but doing this, I what I really wanted was to bring this into my personal relationships, particularly with my husband. And doing this course allowed me to find my voice even in our personal relationship. So that's what I mean by when you are surrounded by this magical environment, you are able to, and you can call it, maybe it's semantics, you can call it going outside your comfort zone, but I feel like you have a bigger comfort zone to take with you.
Exactly. And does that also mean finding your voice to be yourself in public speaking as a brand or being on brand when it comes to a company brand? For
Yes.
example,
Yes. Yes.
can I translate it?
Yes.
Being yourself
Yes.
or
I think, the being yourself thing is such an interesting thing. When I was writing my book, I was thinking,
please.
"Okay, what does it even mean to be yourself?"
Yeah,
I'm one way with my husband, another way with my daughter, with animals, with little kids, with my colleagues, I'm different everywhere. So which one is the real me?
exactly. So what's your
Exactly. Exactly. So how do you go about it? So this is why my way of approaching this is to expand how we allow ourselves to be in order to discover who we are. So for instance, if you've already always been shy and retreating to the background, that's not necessarily the real you. That's the you who was compelled to be shy and in the background. That doesn't mean you have to be vivacious in order to be the real you. You start from where you are, but you can stretch it out. So I like to have people explore the way they use their voice. So we have our own way of using our voice and as thank you so much for your kind reflections on my voice. It's something that I have spent a lot of time with. First of all, 40 years of voice lessons, but in writing my book and my chapter, I think it's chapter 11, The Breath We Take and the Sounds We Make. I wasn't sure if that belonged in the book. I was getting into how to use our voice, but in the writing of the book, I had a transformation in my speaking voice. And I realized that our voice is what we speak with. Duh. And so how we utilize our voice is how we express ourselves, is how we are naturally ourselves. And so how do we get to that core? So I love to spend time with people in the book or in my programs on connecting with our voice and expanding how we dynamically express ourselves, how we actually enjoy forming words. As a little kid, we loved making sounds. We loved finding out how to say this word. English is not your first language, Brigitte. So you had to learn how to make your sounds, your mouth and your whole vocal production form around these new sounds. I'm now a Hungarian citizen. I'm still learning how to speak Hungarian. And just yesterday, my husband was teaching me a new sentence, and I was saying, "Oh, I've really got to get my mouth around that. I know it in my head, but how do I say that?" And when we are working to say things, when we're working to think, we sometimes forget about how we're expressing it. So that is part of our brand, how we express ourselves, how we deliver the words, the ideas that we have to say, not just on through pictures, not just through the written word, but how we speak them. Because we want to, I think of it as a tour guide. Like we want people to understand what is meaningful to us. What is our intention in getting words across by the way we emphasize them, by the way we give melody to our voice, by the volume that we speak, by the intimacy that we bring.
May I?
Yes,
Yeah,
interrupt me.
please, because I think it all starts there with all the people who are really not confident enough to put themselves out there. Does it mean that our thoughts and our feelings that we have within us, is it the first step to get comfortable on camera, to get comfortable with our voice, to translate our inner being into the spoken voice? Not only the nonverbal communication, but also the verbal communication, the voice, that's what we speak itself. That is, we have to be comfortable first when putting ourselves out there visually.
I think it's easiest to start with what I call reveal and heal, starting with clearing away those things. And the reason why I say that is, as I mentioned, I took 40 years of vocal lessons. And I was, for the last 20, maybe even 25, I had lost my singing confidence. And I was afraid to, let's say, hit high notes. And I could feel the tension inside. And I just couldn't. All I had various different teachers, and they taught me wonderful things, and I got incrementally better. But when I was writing the book, I said, "You know what, Linda? You have to do the reveal and heal part here. You're not getting any better. You're, like, struggling for decades with your singing voice, and just do it." And I made a promise to myself that by the time I finished writing the book, I would have gotten to the other side of my singing fear from where and it was something that occurred during my adulthood. So I needed to look into it, I needed to investigate it, all the same things that I tell people about their speaking. And when I did that, all of a sudden, I could do these things that my singing teachers were asking me to do because I wasn't holding on to the fear. So this is why I think you can start. I have people who come into the Comfy on Camera before they do either private work with me or the Clear Your Fear. I have an online digital program for people to do on their own. They can do that and they will benefit from it. But as they but they'll get to a place still where they are going into a new arena where they'll start getting triggered again. Whereas the people who do the clearing piece, they find that they can, it doesn't matter if they're on stage or if they're on podcast or a webinar or whatever, they have the ability to show up without fear in a much more predominant way. Or if I mean it, I feel like if you have a few butterflies, a little bit of a racing heart for 30 seconds is not gonna
Okay.
make or break you, you know? It's where it breaks you that's the problem, For someone there are people who say, "I get a little nervous before each time, but it disappears, like, as soon as I start speaking." That's not a big deal, The point is that we don't want it to stop us or to not just stop us, but to impact our self-worth, impact our ability to be as fully present as we can be so we can communicate as effortlessly as we can, which is gonna grow. We're always gonna grow. We're always gonna become more of ourselves. We're always gonna refine our ability to articulate our ideas. I'm not where I wanna be. I'm not where I know I will be, but I love where I am, and that's what I want for people, to be able to be current with themselves in the here and now. What is the word I want to say? Honoring and accepting and appreciating and loving and encouraging yourself to be just where you are.
Wow. Yeah, and I think that's what I hear. There is also no shortcut to feeling comfy out there on camera. There is a process that you need to actually take.
It's a
Walk me
process,
through.
and it's a fun process. It can be a fun process. It's an interesting process. It's a process of growth, and that's what I love about it is what more joy do we have than feeling that we're growing?
Yeah. And also, I think in a community, because you said, okay, you should be part of or surround yourself with people that might be in the same place as you are, maybe being guided by someone who's really knowledgeable about that, who went through that before. So, for example, taking your classes or your programs, what kind of programs have you actually running currently?
I do have my private coaching. I have my Comfy on Camera. A lot of all people who do private coaching go through the Comfy on Camera. I feel it goes together. I have the Clear Your Fear of Speaking, which is an online journaling program where I guide you to doing the same thing that I do with my clients, but for yourself. I'm revamping that right now because I also want the people who go through that to do the Comfy on Camera. I just feel like it goes hand in hand. It's like once you clear the fear, then you need I really want people to have that community and that experience of learning to find what is naturally themselves because we don't when we've been afraid, we don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was. I
Okay.
didn't know what it was, and I still feel like I'm learning about it. And yeah, so that's being revamped, and I also have master online master classes for dynamic speaking, delicious diction. I love delicious diction. I think I love making sounds. And I think, as I said, it's been this huge discovery of wow, we get to make sounds. How fun is that? And these sounds have meaning. That's even cooler. And then I'm working on right now a third part of that trio is love and transform the sound of your voice, which is working to create the tone quality that you enjoy experiencing and feeling in your body and listening to.
I think everyone who is interested in that should sign up. It's going to be in the show notes. So you have a website that links to all your different programs.
Yeah, I have a few more online ones that people can see. Yeah,
Okay. And you also have a podcast. It's called like your book, The Light in the Limelight. Is
that's
it
right.
complementary to the courses, to the master classes? So who is that?
It's complementary to both. What I in season 1, I've taken the concepts and the ideas from each of the chapters and I've reformulated them
Mm.
to because I wrote the book 2 years ago, so I have, a current way of thinking about it, so I've added to it. The book has more stories and context, the podcast is more concise. I've tried to keep, everything under 10 minutes for these. And, yeah, and I'm hoping that, my clients who are working with me also get something out of those because I don't remember to include everything that I think and know about everywhere I go. So I feel like if this is an area where you want to discover more of yourself, you can either read the book or listen to the podcast or join a program. I try to offer a lot of places for people to be able to have a transformation whether or not they work with me directly or not.
Yeah, it's all about transformation.
Yeah.
Transformation is something that serves the people as well because we're doing something on purpose. And the purpose is not only about us, it's also about everyone else to inspire others. Right.
Yes, and I feel like our world needs all of us, especially those of us who are working to make the world a better place. And I want people to have the freedom in themselves so that they can do the work that they are meant to do.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Linda. We are almost at the end of our show, and I'm doing a short game with you. It's a rapid fire terms game. So I throw out a word, and then you just answer with a sentence or with a word, whatever you feel like. Is that okay for
Okay.
you?
Yeah, fun.
Okay. Story. What comes up?
Connecting. It's the way we connect with people.
Good. Freedom.
A sense of ease and expansion in our bodies.
Self worth.
Loving and accepting ourselves just the way we are.
Purpose.
The what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah. And brains.
Allowing ourselves to be naturally, authentically ourselves as we discover it along the journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. Linda, is there anything that you want to share
Yes. I was
about?
thinking I was thinking I'd love to share a speaker preparation checklist that I use. I spoke earlier about the kinds of things I did on, for Periscope. I have more things that I do now, and I feel that whenever you speak, if you prepare yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that you are able to bring more of yourself to the experience. So you can get that at lindaugelow.com/rituals.
Rituals. Okay, it's gonna be in the show notes. Linda, thank you so much for being my guest today. There's so much to take away from this, and downloading your free checklist, I think, can make a huge difference to the way of how we show up on camera. And I think there will be several people interested in your program. I bet on that. So thank you again for talking about how we can eliminate our fear on camera and how we can get comfy and actually enjoy ourselves on camera. Thank you so much.
And that's my wish for you all to delight in the limelight. Thank you.